Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us in the Money School with LaShawn Holland this evening. I really appreciate you being here. The title of today's Money School is really going to be something that's simple. I don't plan on spending a lot of time being on this, but it's called MYOB, Mind Your Own Business. And I was actually thinking today, earlier I did another live with a friend of mine who works with pretty high net worth clients, salon owners, actually is who she works with. And after the live that we did today, she gave me a call right afterwards. And so we were talking about a lot of different things, a lot of different questions that her clients had that they didn't get a chance to ask while we were actually doing the particular live. But one of the things that stuck with me afterwards, and I was talking about this earlier today with my husband, is post COVID-19, like post the Black Lives Matter protests, post the pandemic financial crisis or the financial change, because that's exactly what's happening now. What are you going to do that's different? And so what does the different look like? You know, a lot of times we say we want to do something different, we want to be in a different place, or we want to be something different, but we don't know what the steps actually even look like. And I am such a fan of knowing your numbers and knowing what that looks like and planning out your way. You know, the Bible talks about before you build anything, counting the cost of building it. And so often we don't take the time, we don't create the space to be able to build what it is that we truly build. When I ask people, you know, do you want a little bit more money in your life? The answer is always yes. When I ask people, how many of you want to live a life where you have options and you have choices and, you know, you can travel the world and whatever, you know, wealth looks like for you, how you define it, because I do think that, you know, we have the choice to define what wealth looks like for us and not allow Hollywood, not allow, you know, anybody else paint the picture of what it looks like for us. You have to define that for yourself, but what does different look like for you? And so you can't, you know, the things that's happening now in the market, you can't control the market. You can't control a market that's very volatile, but you can control your own personal finances. And so I remember when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I remember our greatest shift in our own financial education came when the real estate market crashed in 2008. That was a huge learning curve for my husband and I. So I was determined not to repeat the same mistake that got me to that place. And so when you look at the numbers that's out today, I think it's over 46 million people now that have filed for unemployment. And so if COVID-19 and the pandemic didn't affect you and your pay, I'm pretty sure if you go 6 levels deep in the people that you know, whether it's family members, friends, acquaintances, or friends of friends, you know someone that has been affected financially by COVID-19. And so one of my favorite quotes is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions." And so if you return to the same money habits and thought patterns that you had before all of this started back in January, and the same way of thinking, then, you know, where your money is concerned, then you weren't stretched, you know, you were not changed. And so we had such I would say an amazing opportunity, even during the quarantine, the time that we were home, is not to sit up and look at television all day long and do Netflix. We should have been planning and trying to figure out what our next steps was going to be and defining what my next steps look like. What opportunities can I take advantage of right now that I may not have the opportunity to take advantage of in the future? And so again, if you return to the same pattern of thinking and the same way of being before COVID-19, then you were never stretched. And so, you know, we spend a lot of time minding everything else, minding, minding everything else except consistent motion where our money is concerned. And so money really is a verb. I like to think of it as a verb. It is something that you do, moneying. And so when you want to be a producer, you treat your money like it's the verb. And so you have to mind your own money. That's what MYOB, mind your own business. You know, make money a verb by minding it. And so again, MYOB, mind your own business, mind your own money. That's what I mean by that. And part of your financial change is you gaining clarity around money. And so I can say one of the things that when I was on the huddle time with Ronique today, one of the things that was very clear is that your vision around money and about money changes as you grow. The why that I had years ago when I was pregnant with my oldest son, 24 years ago, 25 years ago, is very different than the why that I have now. And so as you grow, your whys and your how-tos will grow also. And so again, we spend a lot of time minding everything else except being consistent where our money is concerned. And so when we think about treating money as a verb, hopefully you read the post before I went live to say that you needed a pen, paper, iPad. You need something on this particular live. This is not one of those sit back and just listen Facebook lives that we're doing. It's a working Facebook live is what I like to say. But you know, when part of financial change is you gaining clarity around your money. And so what in your life, and I want you to write this down, because even after the live, you're not going to be able to write everything down now. And I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you some of my own examples. I went through the same exercise a few years ago that I'm taking you through now. But what in your life are you minding? M-I-N-D. What in your life are you minding? And so when I think about that question, what are you minding? At that particular point in my life, I was minding, you know, my business and creating a family brand. We were taking it away from it being so much on me to grabbing, you know, my husband building his own brand of Legendary Man, building that up, building, you know, my son's brand. And so a couple years ago when I thought about this and I was thinking of what am I minding, at that time I was minding creating a family brand. I was minding creating the exclusive event for African Americans, right, which was Wealthy Revolution Live, planning that. And so, you know, I'm in the discovery mode for my truest why. And so when I asked myself, what are you minding? It made me to really go deep on the inside and figure out what were the things that I was doing in my life that wasn't lining up for the vision. It wasn't in alignment of what I said I wanted out of the next phase of my life. And so, you know, I was minding at that time, my Born to Multiply book wasn't even out, but I was minding getting my Born to Multiply book finished. I was minding, I guess, my passion of what I wanted to do, you know, in creating holistic products for the Wealthy Leaders Institute, and then adding structure to my staff and being able to build a team and my staff. And so those are the things when I ask you in your life, what are you minding? What are you paying attention to? What's important? What are you building in your life? And so the second question that I would ask you is, what are you minding that you should be saying no to? Because there are a lot of things that we are doing. There are a lot of groups that we're a part of. I have people tell me I'm a part of a lot of Facebook groups, but it's taken you years to develop anything in your business. And so we can spend so much time participating in so many different groups and so many different master classes and programs. A year will go by and we haven't completed anything. It's what I call being on the entrepreneur's carousel. Right? And so you go around and round, around and round, and you never end up anywhere because you don't take the time to get off. And so what are you minding? Write that down. What are you minding that you should be saying no to? You know, maybe it's your weekly gatherings with your friends, you know, that you could be spending building out a program, or you could be spending developing a product. 3, what in your life deserves your minding? And so when you look at what are you minding that you should be saying no to, Some of the things that back then that I wrote down was a position that I was holding, that I had held for years. I knew the time was up for it. And so that was something that I should have been saying no to, because it was taking time away, a lot of time away from doing what it is that I was called to be building. And so that was something that I had to decide that I needed to say no to. At that time, I had just been introduced, I think, to Grace and Frankie on Netflix. And I love Grace and Frankie, but I had to say no to Grace and Frankie because it wasn't placing me in alignment with the things that, you know, I wanted to be able to grow. Some of the things I should have been saying no to was cupcakes and chocolate. And so I'm just giving you, I giggle, but it's true for me, because I actually did write it down. And then unprofitable relationships. You know, probably 2 years ago, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, my husband and I had to take deep looks at a lot of the relationships that we had. And so unprofitable relationships, and then redefining what friendship meant for us. So we would have a clear picture of what it was that we wanted to give to our friends and what we were looking to receive from our friends. And so that was, what are you minding that you should be saying no to? And so when you look at the third question, what in your life really deserves your minding? That's the next question. What in your life really deserves your minding? And so for me, of course, my number one thing was my family. My family deserves my minding. And, you know, my sisters, my siblings, my brother, they deserve my minding. My business deserves my minding. My investments deserve my minding. My clients deserve my minding. My health deserves my minding, and my time, my experiences, where I was spending it, deserves my minding. And so when I ask you what in your life really deserves your minding, these are all questions that we need to ask to help us. How are we going to come out different, and what are some of the things that we're going to do differently post COVID-19, post the economic shift, the economic change that's taken place. And so when you look at the answers of the things that you may have just jotted down even while you're listening to me talk, when you look at the answers above, I want you to create like your top 5 minding list for the rest of 2020. Like, what is your top minding list of things that you want to do for the rest of 2020? Because June is here. Half of the year has been gone. And people, you know, I read a post, I think last week, that was so funny. They said the worst purchase of 2020 was a planner, was the worst purchase for 2020, because COVID-19 just threw all of our plans out the window. We had some really different things on our schedule at the Wealthy Leaders Institute plan. We had 2 cash flow intensives that we were planning. Marriage and Money, or what were we calling? Love and Money. We were going to do a Love and Money live event. And so there was a new program that I was launching. And so 2019 just threw a curveball in all of that. I mean, 2020 through COVID-19 threw a curveball in all of that. But again, I want you to write down, when you look at those 3 questions that I just asked you, you know, using your answers from above, prioritize. What are the top 5 things that you know you want to be minding for the rest of 2020? And then go 7 layers deep on that. Thank you. Go 7 layers deep on that, because we cut off. Go 7 layers deep and ask yourself why. I talk about the importance of going 7 layers deep in my book, but ask yourself why. When I look at the top 5 things that I should be minding for the rest of 2020, why? Ask yourself why, and go 7 layers deep. And so why do I really, why do my family deserve, my minding, my attention? Why is that important to me? And so most people would think, well, it's your family, that should be obvious, but it's not. Like, are there specific things that you want to be intentional about creating in your family, in your life? People ask us, one of the questions that we get asked all the time is, how did we get our kids to be so close with one another? Listen, they went through a stage where they fought all the time. but we didn't allow them to stay angry with each other. After you have your disagreement, there was no swinging or fighting in my house, but after you have your disagreement, you had to look the person in the face and tell them that you loved them, and you had to hug them. Like, we wouldn't allow our kids to go to bed with stuff festering in their heart, but that was intentional. And so when you think about minding, if your family is on your list, what's something that's really intentional that you want to work on? Is it the passion in your marriage? Is it the communication with your children or communication with your spouse? Is it spending more quality time with them? Is it finding out the things that really matter to them? Like, have you ever asked your children what their vision was? Or what are their favorite things? Do you know their favorite foods? Do you know their favorite colors? Do you know their favorite things that they like to do? Do you know who their favorite friends are? The places that they want to go? And so spending time to really get to know your family and what's important to them, and then make what's important to them important to you. You may not think this affects your money, but it really does. It affects how we think, how we treat, the habits, what we develop, and where we're really willing to spend our energy to achieve this. Because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have a loving family to be able to share those experiences with, it means nothing. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't make your health a priority, you won't live enough to enjoy it. And so all of these areas of what we should be minding really does affect your money. Money is not the most important thing, but money touches everything. It decides the zip code that you live in, the mode of transportation that you have when you want to get around. And so it touches every part of your life. And so when you look at these things and you decide what are the top 5 priorities that I want to have for the rest of 2020, write those down and then go 7 layers deep so you can gain clarity around why is it really important for me, right? And you've heard me say this before. I believe that every person has their own personal economy. All you ever hear about on the news is the global economy and what the U.S.'s GDP and all that other stuff. And I'm not saying that it's pointless, it's useless, it's not important, but it's not as important as your own personal economy. And so everyone has a personal economy. And if you have a personal economy, then you should have your own set of financial statements. Like, the bank shouldn't know more about your assets and liabilities than you. And so you have your own financial statements, whether you call it a profit and loss statement or income statement, and you have a balance sheet. And so most people don't pay attention to that they do, but you really do. That's why when you go in to make a purchase of any substantial amount, whether you're trying to buy a house or buy a new car, they want you to list all the assets that you own, and they want you to list all of your liabilities so they can generate your own personal set of personal financial statements for you. And so people who don't know their numbers are really on the path to poverty. If you don't know your numbers, you're on the path to poverty. And so, and you can download a profit and loss statement if you want. I'm actually putting something together because I desire to really, I'm probably going to do like a 7 to 10 day live about this particular teaching in general to help people get their money in together. But when you look at a profit and loss statement, how much do you earn or spend? And so you're looking at money really can be divided into 3 categories, right? You can have your income streams, which would be a category, and under your income streams is all of the income that you have coming in. I believe you should have multiple revenue rivers, at least 7. But when you look at the different income streams and you look at how much you spend on taxes and how much you invest in your wealth, WELLTH, being whole, holistic, being healthy, how much you invest in that, how much you invest in your wealth, WEALTH. And then it could be the second category really would be your lifestyle expenses, right? And so that's your living expenses plus your luxury. There are a lot of things that we categorize inside of our lifestyle expenses that really doesn't have to be there. And so I'm not going to talk about lifestyle creep or expense creep right now, but most people, when they start making more money, their expenses, they increase their expenses instead of allowing that gap to create opportunities for them to be able to do other things. They upgrade their house, they upgrade their car, they just do a bunch of upgrades. That's what's called Parkinson's law, right? You can look it up if you want to, but putting your money into categories, and you could just take the last 3 months of your spending on your bank statement and be able to break down these categories. But your living expenses would be your house and your utilities, stuff like that. And then what are the expenses that you have in your lifestyle that are luxury expenses? You know, I'm starting to see an increase in people investing money in wine clubs, right? They travel all over the world visiting different vineyards and stuff. And so that's becoming a big expense. Also, country clubs is another expense that I'm seeing people have. And so your luxury lifestyle expenses, you should know what they are. And then the third category would be your savings. And under your savings category would be what I call your sunny day expenses. I don't believe in intending to have rainy days. That's why I just changed it to sunny days. But what are those, sunny day, having a sunny day fund? One of the biggest mistakes that people have is that they treat wealth like it's a moving target, and they never segment their money, and they never plan, they never create different vessels, if you will, for their money, right? Jars, like a jar system or envelope system, but creating a sunny day fund under your savings expenses, an educational fund. We plan for education. And you planning for education is important. When you put money aside all year long, when an opportunity comes up for you to join an investment masterclass, you're able to join it without having to pay the expenses of getting on a payment plan, right? Because you've already planned for it. Every year, you should have an educational fund. Open one up at your bank, and you put in a certain percentage every pay period over into your educational fund. This will fall under your savings expenses. I don't believe that savings should be treated like they have been, when your grandmother was doing it. I think savings should be treated for spending on your education and investment. So your sunny day fund, creating an education fund, creating a dream fund that you would take your vacations out of, and creating a pay off debt fund. And so when you look at all of this becomes a part of your income statement. And then I'll put these sheets. I can design them really quick, and I'll put them in the comments after this particular live. But then when you look at your balance sheet should really be divided into 4 different things. The things that mean the most to you. And so it's your wealth investments, it's your health investments, it's your relationships investments, and then your financial investments and assets. And so those are the things that really make up your balance sheet. I'm not sure why people don't add in their family, but my family is most definitely an asset for me. And so that's why I added it to my balance sheet, because it means a lot to me. But investing, when you look at investing, I get a lot of questions about investing because probably I talk about it so much, but I don't believe that you manage assets. I believe that you control your assets. And when I say control, I mean that you're very intentional about the types of assets that you get. And so the objective in investing is not just for asset accumulation, to only have a number and on your balance sheet to say, well, my assets is, $2.6 million, and my asset is whatever that number is for you. The objective really of investing is for passive cash flow. It is for passive cash flow. That is how, when you actually design a cash cow that's giving you revenue, and you have investments that pays you revenue, like real estate, you're owning property and people are paying rent, and you have a positive cash flow that's coming in after you finish paying the mortgage on that property. If you have one, that's money that goes straight free and clear into your bank account. And so, investment should be for cash flow. Cash flow is greater than capital gains every single day of the week. And so with that in mind is what kind of investments can I have that produces cash flow? Most people think the house that they live in is an investment. It's not an asset for you. Why? Because money goes out of your bank account every month to pay for that. Unless it's paid off. Even if it's paid off, you still have to pay property taxes. And so I learned that many years ago, investment really encompasses 7 key components really to take care of you designing what your investment strategy should look like. And that is protection. We don't pay enough attention to how to protect our money, from the vultures that exist that's out here. Number 2, growth. We don't pay attention to growth. Even when I ask people about their 401ks now, and because the market has been doing this, and for people who just park their money inside of a 401k, you are subject to the downturns of the market. But, how much growth are you even getting? Do you even know where your 401k money is the companies that it's invested in? You should. Like tomorrow, you should be contacting your 401k manager at your job, finding out, okay, where are you investing my money? That's important. You need to know. So your money, having growth as a part of your investment plan, and then guaranteeing there are certain parts of investing. If you invest in, an IUL or Index Universal Life, we've talked about that before on our lives, but you want to there are products out here where you can get guaranteed money for the rest of your life. And I'm not talking about in these get rich quick schemes that's out here. You need to know the difference between what's a faux investment, FAUX, meaning fake investment, and what's a real investment. But legacy, do you want to invest in legacy so your kids aren't starting from ground zero? What kind of investments do I make that will minimize the taxes that I have? One of the reasons that I love real estate is because there's so many benefits to a real estate investor because you get to write off depreciation. And so it's one of the benefits. So understanding taxes, understanding estate planning, understanding legacy and how to get growth and the guarantees part of your investments that come in, and then the protection of it. All of these should make up an investment strategy. It's not just, that's why I always, when people say, LaShawn, what should I invest in? I never answer that question off the bat because there's so many more questions that need to be answered. I don't know what your risk tolerance level is. My risk tolerance level is a lot different from my husband's risk tolerance level, right? And so you have to know what that is, and then being able to define your freedom. How much is enough for you? Have you spent time defining that? One of the greatest tragedies for us high achievers, because I call you high achievers. If you show up watching these lives every week, you're a high achiever. But, one of the greatest tragedies for us as high achievers is that we, despite our quest to be different, despite our quest to work harder or win in the game of money, we're still shackled by the narrative of our culture, which is consumerism, right? And so what is the alternative to consumerism? It's freedom. And I submit to you, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the type of freedom that people will call capital or money. I'm talking about time. And so what is your combined, if you're married, working income? Because all these things that I'm teaching is designed to give you time freedom. Because the true wealth really is in your relationships that are around you, And so, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to make more money in my life. It wasn't because I wanted money for money's sake. It was because I wanted to be able to provide a better life for my family. I wanted to be able to give my kids experiences that I didn't get growing up. I wanted to be able to, I didn't want them to start from ground zero, and my plan happened to work out. So it was a good plan because it worked out, but it wasn't just money for money's sake. I wanted to create amazing experiences for my children. And so you need to know this. What is your combined, if you're married, working income? What is your total passive income if you have any? How much is coming in? Like, know your numbers, especially in business. What is your working income goal? What is your passive income goal? I want to be able to have an additional $10,000 a month, an additional $50,000 a month, an additional $100,000 a month. I want to be able to generate this. And so what amount percent of your income is working capital? And then know what part of it is passive income. Knowing your numbers is very important. And so your freedom, what does freedom look like for you? Often we don't take time. How long would you like to live? I just had this conversation with someone recently who was like, I don't want to live to be 100. Matter of fact, my grandfather, growing up, he always said, I'm going to live to be 100 my whole entire life. And then when he got probably around 96 or 97, he was like, I changed my mind. I don't want to live to be 100. And so, he changed his mind. But how long do you want to live? What experiences do you want to have? Wealth has a taste, it has a smell, it has a feeling. What do you want to have? I can still close my eyes and smell the scent of when we were in Mayacaba, Mexico last year. I didn't like it, so that's probably why I can remember it. But it had a scent. What will a life of meaning look like for you? And then design that. A lot of times we're building in the wind and we wonder why we don't get the things that we want. And so you need to figure this out. What's your purpose? Like, what is the reason that you're alive? That's important because you build from that place. And so we've hit 30 minutes. I don't want to keep you here because I can talk about this like forever. But I want you to be looking out for this little, whatever I'm going to call it. Probably when I'm finished, I'm going to post here. But these questions are very, very important for you to decide, what do I want to look like post COVID-19? What do I want my life to look like? Because if this didn't show us anything, it showed us that life is fleeting, right? And so it should be intentional. We should be intentionally building what we want to build. And so if a week goes by and you're not doing anything that place you in alignment with your goals, you need to go back and figure out what areas in my life are my minding that I shouldn't be, and turn money into a verb so that you can see your progress go on and on, as the year close out. So that's just what was on my heart, what I wanted to talk about. Do we have any questions pop up?
Well, number one, you never asked if they had any questions.
Okay.
If you want to put it out there, let's see, you did get one. Twin expectations, that would be Eileen said. Finally
Hi,
can
Eileen.
see you. I'm listening, but also want to know what color lipstick that is.
Oh my God. So hi, Eileen. Eileen is one of my very, very best friends. You are funny. When I get off the live, Eileen, I will send you the name of the lipstick. It is a matte color. I just don't remember the name of it, but I'll send it to you when I get off. So.
Yep, that's it.
That's it? Okay, thank you guys for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.